Hi everyone, it's Simone Watson, and today I want to have a quick chat about blackface and this new thing that, well, not new exactly, but something that people have recently called blackfishing. Okay, so from what I understand, blackfishing is when people who are not black put on a certain type of makeup or tanning stuff or something, change their hair, do different things to look black online. And this is happening sort of in like the beauty community on Instagram, where you've seen mostly girls or women making themselves look black and doing these makeup looks, and kind of getting, popular, getting attention from it, and then having it be found out later that actually they're not black. And I want to talk briefly about why this is a problem, from my perspective as a black woman. And so, in terms of blackfishing, there is, I guess, one incident that happened recently that called attention to this, and I can't really remember the name of the woman that did this, but it's okay because what I'm saying kind of applies just in general. And so I saw people talking about it on The Real, which is a talk show, and you had like Jeannie Mai and Adrian Bailon raising some, I guess, concerns that other people might have had, which was Adrian was saying like, so what? It's just when you put on like makeup to make yourself a shade darker because I do that because I'm not tan, etc., etc., etc. She puts on makeup, whatever. And Jeannie Mai was saying, well, isn't it about the transformative power of makeup? Um, so I'm just gonna give you a little analogy. My my voice is a little bit tired, so hopefully I can get through this. But imagine that, let's say that there are two friends, uh, Lila and Jesse. Just making up these names, Lila and Jesse. So they bake together. They always make cakes, and after they make the cakes, or let's just say pies, because it's like a pie chart. When they make the pies, they sit down to eat them. Now, every time they sit down to eat the pies, Jesse gets 90% and Lila gets 10%. This happens every single day, every single day, every single day. And sometimes Lila gets upset about this 10%, or actually Lila is always upset about this 10% and is like, why is it that you get 90 and I get 10? And Jesse is like, because that's how it's always been. So one day, they're complaining to whoever, their boss or somebody who doles out the pie, and the boss says, okay, finally, I'm going to make it a little bit more even. Now, Jesse is going to get 70% instead of 90, and Lila is going to get 30%. It's still not even, but it's a little bit better for Lila than it was. However, Jesse starts to get upset and jealous and be like, why is it I've always had 90% of the pie and now I only have 70% of the pie? To Jesse, this seems unfair and unjust because Jesse has gotten used to enjoying a certain, amount of pie and no longer has it. But from Jesse's view, Jesse can't understand that if you were Lila, you've always had something less. You've always dealt with something that was less than somebody else. So, and somehow Jesse doesn't seem to perceive that, like, Jesse still has the majority of the pie. 70% is still most of the pie. Okay, so Jesse gets upset and frustrated and is sad, and maybe Jesse's even like, you got the better part of the pie, and I got the part with like less whipped cream or whatever the heck. And so Jesse decides, because Jesse is upset, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna take your piece of the pie, Lila, and I'm just gonna claim it for myself. Or even claim some of it for myself. And this upsets Lila. Why? Because Lila finally got to move up somewhere and Jesse had to take ownership of it. This is essentially why certain things like cultural appropriation, not even like cultural appropriation, but like something like cultural appropriation in a business setting is a problem, okay? Because if you think about it, people of color have always had less of the pie. This is just American history. People of color have always had have always owned less, have always been less present in most industries than white people. White people have the monopoly. So when we're talking about something like the beauty industry, okay, and it's like white people have always had control of most of the beauty industry, and black people had probably less than 10%. I just threw some numbers out there, but black people had a portion, and other different groups of people of color had a portion of the beauty industry, but not much. And so more recently, we're starting to see this grow. We're starting to see, black people have more sway in different, lots of different industries, including the beauty industry. We're starting to see black influencers, be able to enjoy a measure of success, and that's awesome and that's beautiful. And so for black people, it's like, yay, we got this victory. Now we have the Jefferson's theme song is running through my head when they go, we finally got a piece of the pie. But that's exactly what it is, okay? It's black people claiming a place in society that our ancestors have been trying to claim for 400 years, okay? So to see a presence of black women or black people in general in the beauty industry is awesome. The problem with this is for a white person to come into the space of black beauty influencers and try and claim that space for themselves. It is like the analogy of Jesse claiming Lila's piece of the pie. It's like saying, you know what, instead of us celebrating that you got something, that now you have something for yourself, we are going to reclaim it for ourselves because white people should own everything. That is essentially the message that is being sent when white people try to take over a space like that is a space for black people. I'm not saying that Instagram belongs to black people. I'm saying the specific part of the beauty influencer community, I'm sorry, that's my phone. The specific part of the beauty influencer community that centers around black people belongs to black people. White people can be beauty influencers. We've always known white people could be beauty influencers. That's never been in question. White people still probably have the majority of that industry. But don't come into the space where black people are celebrating that they have something special too, and then you go and claim that for yourself because you already have your thing. Does that make sense? Okay, and so for somebody to paint themselves black and put on some makeup and be a beauty influencer and get paid to be black, it's kind of a slap in the face to people that are actually black. Because we can't take this off. This is not a costume. This is not a joke. This is not, people have said this and it's true. It's like you can't, this is kind of going into the cultural appropriation topic, but essentially, if you're going to be black, you take the good and the bad, okay? I love being black. I'm glad that I'm black. I'm not saying that being black in and of itself is bad. No, I think that it's good. But when you are a black person, there are certain setbacks that happen in our society, and you take that and understand it and know how to deal with it. It's just a part of the African American experience, or Black American experience, because some Black Americans are not African American, some black people, but that's a part of the experiences you learn to work with that. So cultural appropriation is a problem because it's like, oh, we want the fun parts of being black, but we don't want to actually face discrimination. There's more to it than that. So I can't really get into all of that in this video, especially because my voice is telling me, hey, it's almost time to stop. But just know that like cultural appropriation is kind of a thing that comes in there as well, and is, similar to this issue, in some ways. Lastly, the talk about Blackface. Blackface has a very ugly history. I can't even explain all of this to you all, but the reason why I'm talking about this second is because I think that the people who are on Instagram painting themselves black, some of those people don't understand the history of blackface. which is white people, usually white people, okay, painting themselves black, or sometimes they paint themselves to look like other people of color, but usually when we say blackface, we mean they're painting themselves to look like black people, and they're doing these ugly, offensive caricatures that perpetuate like terrible stereotypes about black people. And this is something that, again, has gone on for a very long time. If you wanted to look it up, you could look it up. If you wanted to look up Jim Crow, remember segregation related laws in the South were often called Jim Crow laws. There was a character named Jim Crow, played by a white guy painting himself black. And it's a problem not only because of what I mentioned earlier, because it's like white people trying to get paid to be black, because sometimes they would do that in movies. Instead of hiring a black person, you just hire a white person and paint them black. Like, but it's more so, like, perhaps even more so because this was making a joke out of someone's culture and skin color, like making a joke out of a group of humans. And it's hard for me to explain to you as a black person how, like, just ugh, it feels to think about that. And this was like my ancestors not that long ago, maybe my grandparents, my great grandparents, having to watch whatever the TV and movies and whatever about, you know, where white people were dressing up as black people, perpetuating these like terrible stereotypes about black people. I can't even talk about it too much because it's just emotional right now. And later on, perhaps I will talk more to you guys about blackface. But one of the reasons this comes to mind too is because of this woman, I think her name is Megan Kelly, who was on TV like a few weeks ago talking about Halloween costumes. And she was saying when she was a kid, it was okay to dress, you know, if you were white, it was okay to paint yourself black and dress up as somebody black if you were being respectful. That it was okay back then. Now, there are a few problems with this. Number one, blackface has always been bad. Number two, she probably didn't know the history of blackface, but blackface is really, really terrible. I mean, it's really hard for me to explain to y'all. It's bad, okay? It doesn't feel good when somebody makes a joke out of you, when somebody makes a costume out of you, you know, as if you're like an animal or something. Like, it feels really bad, and it's really harmful to the psyche of black people. So, okay, so don't say, oh, it wasn't bad back then. It was bad. But then the other thing is to say that something was okay back then it's not really a logical argument, because some people would say the same thing of slavery, right? Slavery was okay at the time. No, it wasn't. It's just that the people who did it thought it was okay, and they hung out with other people who thought it was okay, and they didn't listen to the people who didn't think it was okay. You know, so if you're like, oh, it was okay to do blackface 30 years ago, whatever, maybe you just didn't listen, or you didn't hear the people that were saying it wasn't okay. So now, because social media exists, those people have more of a voice to say, hey, this isn't okay. We're being harmed by this. That doesn't mean that we weren't harmed by it back then, you know? So, yeah, if you have any questions, I'm not going to refilm this, even though my phone went off twice. I'm sorry about that, but I'm not going to refilm it because I am, like, running out of voice, okay? So, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And if you want me to talk about how this relates to writing, because I could definitely I could definitely do a video about writing characters of color and how not to make caricatures and different things like that. Let me know, okay? Thank you for watching. Probably said that already. I'll see you on Monday.